Hello, my name is Samar. I also go by Sam or First Time Painter. Any of those you want to call me, you can. This will be kind of a review, almost first impressions, but not really, because I've been using these palettes, and this is also the second time I'm filming this video because the first one just was awful. It was just not going well, and I was too embarrassed to even upload it. So here I am again, and as you can see from the title, even though probably no one cares because these have been out for months, I will be doing like swatches and try-ons of the two middle shades of the NARS, what is this? Hot Escape Cheek palette, shades 2 and 3. So there is one lighter than this and one deeper than this, but I have a medium skin tone, so of course I just got the two in the middle. Roxy's now leaving. Never mind, she's just sitting in the doorway. I'll be trying these on either side of my face. So shade 2 will be on my right side, shade 3 will be on my left side. Also, really quick, let me turn up the brightness on my ring light so you have an actual chance of seeing anything in this video, first of all. But look at my eyeshadow. I think it's so fun, and I used an entire palette on my eyes, so there's a lot going on, but I felt like because it was a purple and yellow look, I had to wear something Vikings. I know it's not football season, but the Vikings are always with me and always disappointing me. And then on my lips, I don't know if you can still see it, but I'm wearing this on top of like a different thing. I'm wearing this Fenty lip oil, and it is so pretty and like holographic. I'm gonna add a bit more. Hopefully now you can see it a bit better. I can't see it on camera, but it is so like bright and vibrant in person. I love it. I love those Fenty lip oils, like the new ones. Oh my gosh. But I'll just get started into the actual purpose of this video. So before I do the try on, the sun is like, it keeps disappearing behind clouds behind me. Sorry about that. Also my air is on, so you might hear that later. Here's what the first palette looks like. Again, this is shade 2, and I believe because I don't know why they did this, but like the label is upside down on the packaging, so I think these shades are called Dominant, Topless, Electra, and then this is the Laguna 3 bronzer. Here's what the palette looks like swatched, and the bronzer is on the bottom. I know you can barely see it with my driving hand tan, but you can build it up, so it does, at least on my skin tone. And I'll also put my let me lower this so the lighting changes. I'll put all of my like foundation shades in the description box in case you want to compare how it would look on your skin tone. But on my skin tone, the bronzer does show up, and it is buildable, so you can even build it up to be maybe not deeper than how it looks in the pan, but it like, you can definitely see it if you put 2 layers. So this is what this first palette looks like. This is actually the first one that I bought, and I was not planning on buying shade 3, but it is so beautiful. Something to note, which I didn't notice before, if you can see here and on my finger, that first blush, I think Dominant, did stain my skin a tiny bit. Here's what shade 3 looks like, and again, don't quote me on this for sure, but I think the shades are Obsession, Night Swim, Skinny Dip, and Laguna 6, which I think has more of a red undertone. This entire palette, except for the highlighter, does have more of a red undertone, and shade 2, including the bronzer, has more of a yellow undertone, and I have yellow undertones, so theoretically shade 2 should work a lot better for me. But I do think, spoiler, both of these work very well on my skin tone, so if you're worried about that, I wouldn't be too worried. And here's what those shades look like swatched. As you can see, there is a tiny bit more red in that bronzer. Sorry if you can hear that cat meowing in the background. That's not one of my cats. One of my neighbors has a cat who unfortunately sounds a bit lonely most of the time. But I will be using these brushes, which are dirty, but I only use them a few times, so I'm just gonna use them. Roxy's back in the room, so you're definitely gonna be hearing her. There she is. Now Rosie's here, so this is probably gonna be just as bad as the last video, but I am going to start with shade 2 on my right side, and I'll make sure to get close to the light when I show you what it actually looks like, because this lighting just does not work no matter what I do. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna take this tapered, angled, kind of fluffy brush. I use this for like my contour, but I only have like one bronzer shade, so I'm just gonna use this everywhere I would use bronzer and contour. And I'm gonna tap a few times because again, this is a little bit sheer, so I'm not worried about going overboard. And I'm just going to lightly dust it on my forehead, get it into my bald spots on my hairline, go in a few more times and put it on my cheekbones where I would contour, even though I usually like to use a neutral or cooler tone shade. Especially for summer, I think it's okay to use a bronzer for contour because we're all gonna be tanned anyway. And then anything I have left, I'm just gonna bring it down onto my double chin. But that is what it looks like with one layer. I'm gonna try to get a little bit closer, but this is what it looks like with one layer. So there's just a tiny bit of like added dimension and color. This is the side without it. So I think that looks pretty good, but I am gonna build up one more layer. Also, I completely changed the angle earlier and didn't even mention it, but yeah, I'm just gonna tap in a few times again and add pretty much just the same amount in the exact same places where I put it before. Hopefully my blending is a little bit better than the first time I did this video because I had just like a giant patch of bronzer on both cheeks. I could not get it together in that video. And again, a little bit on the double chin. And this is what it looks like built up. At least I can definitely tell that there is a difference between the two sides. It does look warmer and more sun-kissed, and the definition, geez, oh my gosh, the definition in my cheekbone is a lot more prominent, which is great because I barely have cheekbones at all. Now I'm gonna start with blush, and this has two blushes in it, but I consider this one here, which is topless, to be more of a blush topper because it is very glowy and slightly shimmery. It does have some shimmer in it, whereas the second blush in the other palette is a satin, but it doesn't have any shimmer in it and it's not as glowy and intense. So I will be using these on the same cheek, but I'll do them first. I'll start with dominant and then I'll put topless on top. Sorry, I can't do like one on each cheek because I gotta save space on my face. Hopefully that's all right because again, I consider this to be a blush topper for myself anyway. And I just tapped in once into that first matte blush. It on my skin tone can be very intense and I'm not used to like very intense bright pink, I was about to say highlighter, blushes. So I'm going to just use it sparingly and blend it in as much as possible. But it is very easy to blend. Like I didn't really have to do that much work and it's not patchy anywhere. So that's what it looks like. I really do like it. And I think just for a fun summer color, this is actually a really nice blush because most of my blushes are very like neutral and muted or kind of like deep and purpley. So this is a nice like June, July blush. Then again, I'm just gonna tap in once into that highlighter topper blush shade and I'm just gonna kind of stamp it on. That's what they look like both together. So it kind of just added like a peachy pink layer on top. And then I'm gonna buff it in over my entire cheek. Mixed together, these shades don't look quite as glowy as it would if I just used that blush on its own, because if I had to build it up to its actual opacity, I'm sure it would be very glowy. But together, I really like those. And again, I have like warm yellow undertones, so adding that like peachy pink yellowish blush on top kind of just made it a tiny bit more natural looking. Not that my cheeks naturally look like this, but I feel like it, yeah, gave it just a little bit more of like a subtle tone that blends into my skin tone. But if you don't have yellow undertones, that doesn't apply to you, so sorry. Then finally, I'm gonna use this highlighter, which is called Electra. And I don't know why I chose this brush for highlighter. This was like a decision I made, not really thinking about using it for review purposes. I usually try to like buff in my highlighter over my entire cheek, but I am trying to keep this concentrated on the top part of my cheekbones just so we can differentiate between what is the highlighter and what is the blush topper. So I'm gonna be very careful when I do this, and the sun is again changing behind me, so sorry about that. But this is what the highlighter looks like, and it is so beautiful. Again, it's definitely shimmery, and you can tell that you are wearing highlighter, but it doesn't look like cheap or anything. And I think it's really pretty. This would be like, this highlighter I feel like would be good for a glam night or like a summer night dinner with mood lighting. I don't know, that's what I'm envisioning, as if that's gonna happen for me. It's not. It is so pretty. I really love it. And I was using these highlighters in both of these palettes as inner corners, and they are so beautiful as inner corner highlights. That's probably the way I'm gonna use them even when I'm not using this as a face palette, because they're just so beautiful. In fact, let me take some of that highlighter, just dabbing in once, and I'm gonna do something very 90s here. I'm gonna put it on my brow bone. So just to show you like how beautiful it can be on your eyes as well. But if you can see the difference between like the highlighted brow bone and the non-highlighted brow bone, highlight, I don't know. We're gonna skip over that, but it is so pretty. I love it. So that was shade number 2, and now I'll move on to shade number 3 on this side. Again, I'm gonna start with the bronzer, and before you ask, no, I'm not gonna wipe off my brushes. We're gonna use them as is. So again, here's the bare side, here's the side with the shade number 2 bronzer, and then just tapping in a few times. Again, I don't know why I'm trying to use my camera as my mirror, but I'm just gonna go in with a tad bit of a light hand, but not too much, because again, these are sheer and buildable. And I just love, especially this shade because it is deeper, but I love this shade as a contour shade. It is so pretty. And because it has those red undertones, I feel like it does blend into the blush just a tiny bit better. So here's what it looks like with one layer, and if this was like just me using this for my own personal use, I would stop here, because again, this is a deeper shade, so I feel like I can very easily get away with one layer of this. But again, I want to show you how buildable these are, so I'm gonna go over everything again with the same amount of product. So here's what that looks like with the second layer, and as you can see on me, it does look a little bit intense, especially for a day look, but I wasn't really planning on going anywhere special anyway. But I think that still looks really nice. Like I wouldn't feel weird going out like this, and I think it's just perfectly buildable and so easy to blend. So yeah, I just really like this palette. But moving on to the blush, again, I'm going to start with the shade Obsession and then go on top of it with Night Swim, and this is a matte and this one is a satin. Again, just tapping in once into that first blush shade so that it's not too intense. And sorry if you can hear my neighbor stomping, as always. Here's what that looks like, and initially I didn't know if this blush was gonna be a favorite of mine, because even though it's deep, it's a deep coral, and I just don't think coral looks good on me at all. But there's Roxy. But I do really like this one, so I'm very pleased with that. Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this before Roxy has a fit. But I'm gonna layer Night Swim on top of it, and again, just tapping in once. And this one isn't gonna change much of the finish because again, it is just a satin. It's not a shimmer like the previous one. But it does change the color, because you can tell me what color you think this is, but I feel like that's kind of like a bright raspberry. Hi! And that's what it looks like. Again, a much deeper blush combo, but this is the deeper palette, so it makes sense. Sorry, I ran out of storage again, so I had to once again delete my entire life off of my phone, but finally I'm going to use this deeper highlighter, and this was the one shade that out of everything in both of these palettes I felt like just really would not work for me, if any of them. But I was happily proven wrong. I do think this would be too dark for me if I was just wearing it by itself, but I would never wear highlighter by itself anyway. And I think it goes really well paired with all of these shades. So I'm just gonna tap in lightly once and then try to concentrate it on the high points of my cheek. And it is just so pretty. And both of these highlighters are yellow tone, but I feel like this one has a warmer yellow to it. And again, it is so pretty as an inner corner highlight. I just love it so much. But that's what it looks like on my cheek. And again, I'm gonna do a brow bone highlight just because I love these highlighters so much. They're so pretty. But I think this is like just as pretty on my brow bone as on my cheekbone. So yeah, I really like using it that way. And again, even though these are shimmery, they're not like huge chunks of glitter, and they're very refined. Like, this is a high-end formula, so it doesn't look like a cheap, like glittery, frosty highlight or like brow bone shade. So here's what the two palettes look like swatched together. This one is shade 2, the lighter one, and this one is shade 3, the deeper one. And as you can see, which is one of my favorite things about this palette, or these palettes, is at least between the two medium shades, I don't own the other two, so I can't really say for sure, but between these two shades, you can tell that there is a definite difference between not only depth, but also the shades offered. So it's not like you're just buying the same highlighter and blushes, but just getting a deeper bronzer. No, there's like obvious differences in all of the shades in here, which I really love, especially because I own both of them, so it doesn't feel redundant for me. But yeah, these are the two palettes. So, oh, let me swap them. This one, shade 2, is on my right side, and shade 3 is on my left side. And I'm very happy with both of them. If you haven't gotten these and you're interested, I would get them quickly because these look like they might be discontinued very soon. But if you're not thinking about getting them, this is not me trying to tempt you at all. I just thought it would be fun to do this video, even though they've been out for so long and I'm sure no one cares about this. This video is gonna get 0 views. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. I know what I'll be using on my cheeks pretty much all summer, which I think officially started today, so happy summer. But yeah, I will just see you in my next video, and until then, I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye.